just waiting for my stream to come up. So, hey everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of the. This is basically my Filemaker series, and this particular little series, we're on episode 4, and we are talking about. Let me check this message really quick. Okay. So what we're talking about today is we're talking about doing like sandwiches. I had a question the other day from Doug, and the question was basically, how do you, if you have, let's say you have a sandwich shop, or let's say you want someone that can basically, they get to select their own stuff. So they get to select like their types of bread, or the type of filling that they have, or the condiments like mustard or dressings, or whatever. How do I make this into a very boutique-esque type of situation where the customer is what creates the menu versus the menu being created and then the customer selecting it? So we're going to kind of delve into that just a little tiny bit today. We're not going to like really get in deep, because it is kind of a complicated scenario to actually take on as a whole challenge. But we will actually figure something out, and I'll kind of show you how to get to that part. It's not too darn difficult. So the first thing we're going to do is, obviously we opened our solution, and now what we want to do is we want to edit the layout, and we want to insert a picture. I just select any picture basically that you want that has to do with this particular ideal. Where am I at? I am wanting to get to E and pictures and to foods and to let's just do a blank sandwich. We're on the lunch menu basically right now, FYI. So we are creating a lunch deal, and what we're going to do is I'm trying to make it pretty much the same size as that one over there. So I'm going to just kind of put it right here so that it lines up at the top, and then I'm going to move this bottom so it lines up with the bottom. I'm going to move it over here, making it the same size. I should have made it the same size to start with, but whatever. Okay, so now we've created a button, or we've created something that we can actually use for that. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to call this create your own specialty item, or let's call it sandwich or whatever. Create your own specialty sandwich, and then we could take like a number. Now, if you go to the dinner foods, you'll see that the price is much larger. So we can say that we can take, if we edit this layout, we grab this, Control C, and then we have to go back obviously and go back. We can basically come back here and we can edit the layout, and we can paste our number here. And that gives us, what that does for us is it gives us an idea. So we know it's 48 and it's Arial. So this one we could basically create 48 and it's already Arial. So we have that right size. We kind of know where it is that we want that to be. Now this sandwich item we're going to bring down here. And if you haven't remembered, you can select this one, hold the shift button, then select this one. And then we can go to our inspector panel, and we can go into the position of it, and we can actually align them on the left or the right edges, whatever works best for us, and then move them in sync without actually having to move this create your sandwich thing. So if that helps you, and it probably should help you, we can now click on this, and we can delete it and make this one $29.95 for the create your own sandwich idea. Now, this is going to be a bit more difficult, because what we need to do here is we need to create a page with a whole bunch of popovers. So I think the best solution for this would be we'll go back into, we want to manage our layouts. And in this particular one, we are on Mama Lunch. So if we go to Mama Lunch and we duplicate that one, we can then edit it and we can call it something else. So we can say Mama Lunch, and then we can call it like special. And we'll just say, go ahead. That will be just fine. Now what we need to do is we need to create a button that will go to that page, right? So if we go here, and I want to, instead of saying order item, I want to say create item. Create item. But I want it to do something. So I want it to just do a single step. And the step is go to. I'm going to do this kind of fast, so I do apologize if you guys if we miss something. I'm a little bit ill today, so we'll just have to work with that. But my stomach basically is feeling like it's not. I've been weak and tired. I think I got the flu like everybody else. So now if we exit the layout and we hover over this, it'll take us to this page. Well, the cool thing is we can still go to the dinner foods and the lunch foods and all the other. We can still have access to all this stuff. Now remember, if you didn't do these buttons yet, you'll have to tell them what to do later on. So like right now we don't have anything for the drinks and we have nothing on the specials. So when we go back in and we're on our dinner foods, let's say, and we create a specials menu, then we have to actually tell the other menus, like the lunch food, we have to tell this one where to go for the specials. And because it won't just automatically transfer over there. So on our lunch food, we'll go to create items, and it's going to take us to this, and it says right here, Mama Lunch Specials. So with this in mind, we can pretty much get rid of anything that we want to. But in this case, for like this thing, you can have your breads, and this can be like a popover, or this can be like, you can either do it, there's like a dozen different ways you can actually create this. But unfortunately, what you have to do is you have to be able to create it in a sense where your kitchen knows what it's making. Because if you just had them as separated prices and you said, all right, well, this bread price and this and this and that and all this other stuff. So you actually have to create you can create a list view or a listing or whatever it is you want to. So if you wanted to, you could, let's edit the layout really quick. You could delete this. Well, obviously delete that, and we'll delete this. So you could have like just a text in here, and you could basically say like breads, and then you can select whatever breads that you want, and then have those as either toggles, or you can create a popover, which would be my particular thing to do, is create a popover button. I would create a popover like so, and I would call this one breads. And currently we don't want it to do anything, but it didn't. That silly thing. I didn't create the popover button, so I need to create a popover button. That's what I need to do. So we'll create a popover button, and we're going to call this one breads. And so now what I would do with this is I would create buttons inside of this. So like this button currently does nothing. So if you come over here, you see, oh wait, that one actually does do something. Does this one do something? No. Okay. Does this one do something? No, this one doesn't do anything. So we can actually use this one because it does nothing. So we can just press and hold the control button and take it and get it away from there. And so now in the breads, if you double click on your breads, you can bring your popover over here. And you can just duplicate these as much as you want. And we're just going to move this. We're just going to move it someplace where it's out of the way. We're going to get rid of this. So now in our breads selection, we're just going to line it up. Now you can change the color of this. You guys saw how I did on my other stuff when I did the order items. You saw how I made that happen. And it's really pretty cool and unique. It's a wonderful idea. So if you want to, you can do the very same thing with your breads. You can change the button as well. So just changing the outline of this is pretty simple. It's right here. It says solid, 1 point, and it's a blue color. If I was to change it to a dark red color or a yellow color, you can see how it automatically just changes it. And if you want to, you can also create this. And the cool thing is because we haven't done any changes to it, let's grab this and just delete it. We can create the breads, press and hold the control button, and just move it down. And do the same thing again and again and again, depending on how many selections you want people to have. So in this case, it would be, instead of being breads, you want this one to be meats. You want this one to be toppings or whatever, or I don't know, veggies. We'll call this one veggies. We'll call this one like sauces. So it just depends on how many different how many different factions you actually want in your system. So in this one, like the meat selection, you can put, if you want to, you could put, if you had a picture of meats, you could actually fill this background with like a picture of meats if you want to, or you know, whatever makes you happy, you can certainly do. And then each one of these buttons, you're going to need, each one of these buttons needs to be like an inventory item, the same as we did with the order item one. So like if you go into, it doesn't have to necessarily be the same as in, like if we exit this layout and you press order item, it'll say order the item or cancel, so that you have that ability. If you accidentally push the button, you have that ability to change it. So in this case, what we've got is we've got breads, meats, vegetables. So here you can select your bread, and the button would actually be the different breads. So this button, if you double click on it, it would be, we would call this like white. This button would be whatever kind of breads you guys like, like sourdough. Whatever the case is, whatever, if you have a pumpernickel, let's do pumpernickel because I think that's funny. Pumpernickel. Like pumpernickel bread. Whatever types of bread you want, that's what you would put in here. And then for your meats, close this one down. For your meats, you would be like, double click this one. This would be ham. And if you want to, you could make this where people could double it, or they could triple it, or they could, whatever, however you want to do this. This is your selection. Today's show is basically just about showing you how easy it is to do something like a boutique sandwich shop. How easy it is to create a menu that changes with every single person that comes into your store. They can create their own dynamic menu system that will do whatever, and then send that to the kitchen. And it's such an easy process to do. Because what you're going to do is each one of these items is going to be sent to, like this one would be turkey. This one would be, if you wanted, like if you had meats, cheeses, vegetables, you could break it down. You can break it down as absolute far as you want. So if you've got like 50 different selections for people to have, you can either have 50 different buttons for people to select for their sandwich, and either is fine. It is going to make it more complicated for the kitchen because they're going to have a huge list that they're going to have to look at. And they're going to have to be able to scroll through that list. Unless you really tiny printing, in the case you're going to have to fit them with goggles so they can see what they're doing, because it will obviously be a funny thing at that point. So here we have ham, we have turkey, we have chicken. This one we'll make beef. And this one we'll make fish. So, and like I said, these can be relatively endless. So if you wanted to have 25 of them, you could have 25 of them. You don't have to have just 5. You can have as many as you want to. Now the point becomes we have to be able to set these up so that people know what they are, right? So that we can do this. So let's go into manage our database quickly. And we're going to create a brand new table. And the table that we want to create is, and we're just going to call it specials. Or I don't want to call it specials because we're actually going to do a specials. We're going to have a whole section on just specials. So let's do, instead, I'm going to call this one items. And we'll create it. And if we double click on it, we don't really need a lot. What we do need on this items is we need some sort of a serial number or some sort of a tracking number or some sort of an order number. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to call this order number. And it can be a text. It can be a number. I'm going to make mine a number. I'm going to create it. And then this number is actually going to be a serial number. And I'm going to start with a 5 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 5 zeros. I will call it OK. Now, you can have an ID number if you want to. You can have, there's all kinds of things you can have on this. The biggest thing is that what we want it to do is we want it to define so that so that the kitchen people can actually tell what it is that this person is trying to order, because you're going to reference this number in your sales so that the kitchen can go backwards and look at what the order actually was. So what we do need is we need order number. We need we can have. I want to be able to put this in an interesting, so that we know. So we can, if you're going to break it down. So how can I make this so that you guys can understand it? So if you're going to break it down into this many selections, you're going to need something in here that will define that. So like in this case, you have, I'm going to create a field that's named breads. And it's going to be a text. And I'll create it. And then the next field will be meats. And it's going to be a text, and I'm going to create it. And the next field, do you kind of see where we're going with this? Because we now have, and I'm just going to grab myself here real quick. But you can see where we have like, this is a sauce, this is veggies, this is meats, and this is breads. So we're going to have that very same thing here. So we've got breads and we've got meats. So whatever breakdowns that we created here, like the meats and the vegetables and the sauces, we want to have the exact same breakdowns in our field section, so that we can, when we create a list, when we create that view, that for the kitchen, that they know where it is and we know what field we want to send data to. That's kind of a big deal. Vinas, how the heck are you? It's good to see you, Vinas. So we have the breads, we have the meats, we want the veggies. Also a text, we want the cheeses. Also a text, and the sauce. And if you have multiple sauces, if you want like a multiple thing, if they say I want mustard and blah 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 blah, you're going to have to fill this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the sauces, and it's gonna be a text, and then I am going to create a sauces 1, and I'm gonna create it, and then I'm gonna create a sauces 2. And I'm going to create it. And I'm going to do a sauces backspace 3. And I'm going to create it. And now what you're going to see is when we get into this field, when we get into this system that we're going to do, this is going to be a kitchen view. So it's not going to be, we're not too worried about what it looks like for us per se, but what it looks like for the kitchen and how this operates for the kitchen, because that's kind of a big thing. It's all about, can the kitchen use this information? So if you have several different meats and you want that individual to be able to select several different meats, you can actually put that down. So you've got meats, you can have meats 1, create meats backspace 2, create meets backspace 3, create, and the same with all of the other things. But just remember, you have to limit how many selections people are allowed to do, right? There's got to be some sort of a selection. So if you're gonna have meats and you got pepperoni if you want to, I don't care, whatever you want. But this is how you accomplish that goal. And today's entire video, by the way, is because Doug asked me, how do you do this? And I thought, I'll just create a video for him that has all this information in it. So this will be that particular video. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to say, okay. And now what we want to do is we want to create a brand new layout. So we're going to do, we're going to go to layouts, and we're going to new layout and mama, and we're going to call this show records from, and this particular one we're going to do, we want it from items. And you want to call it layout 12, you want to call it whatever you want to. I'm going to call this kitchen, and I think I'll call it sands. Now, computer is just fine. We want it to be in a form view. If you wanted to, you could do it in a list view, but that would be really difficult to do it in a list view. I think that your best solution is to do it this way. And we will go ahead and we'll finish it. And now, as you can see, we've got this little itty bitty thing. If you go to your lines, you'll see where your lines are. So you can light them up if you wish. All right. And remember, this is the kitchen view. So we don't really care that much about what it looks like. I mean, we do, but we don't, right? So we can change this. If you want a super contrast, that's fine, you can do that. But I think that one thing that we do need to do is we need to go to our field picker, and we're going to start right from the very beginning, and we're going to just do, you can do a standard view like this, or you can do a labels this way. If you're into haste and you just want to do this quickly, I think that this is probably going to be your best one, which is to have like the order number over the top. So you can do order number, and we can select this and bring it out like so. And we can also select the size. So if this is a kitchen thing, we want to make it big. We want to be able to see very quickly what items there are on this. And so here we've now got the breads. So if you have 5 different kinds of breads, or somebody can select, no one's going to select, let me straighten this out for you. No one's going to select 2 different kinds of breads for a sandwich. They're going to select a single kind of bread for one sandwich. I think. I don't know. I personally myself always select the same kind of bread. It's like, do you want white? Do you want pumpernickel? Do you want whatever kind of bread there is? I'm always like, just give it to me on a white bread or sourdough or, pumpernickel. So just one kind of bread is all I ever choose. I don't usually select 10 different kinds of breads. So in this case, what we're going to do is I'm going to separate these two. So the breads I'm going to bring to probably a 14, and this I will bring to a 18 or a 24. Maybe the breads I'll bring to a 24 too. So now we can have our breads or our bread. If we didn't like the way that it is, we could say bread selection. Type in something like this. And so what this is going to do is it's going to build the sandwich, right? We're going to build a sandwich this way. So we now have bread, and then we'll do our meats, and the first one we want with this meats thing. So we can do this and go to 24, because remember that's what we did. And then this one we did to 24. Okay, I'm just trying to make it look good. Just trying to make it look good, people. So then we have like the different kinds of meats, right? So in this one, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use the label because I don't want it. So I'm just going to go meats 1, bring it out here, meats 2, bring it out here, meats 3, bring it out here. And then I'm going to select all 3 of them, and I'm going to increase all 3 of them to 24. And now I can basically bring them over and stack them right next to each other. Meats 1, meats 2, meats 3. And now this is going to be something very easy for your kitchen to read, right? They're just going to be able to say, hey, this is what this person is ordering. And they'll actually be able to get it real time, which is like totally cool, right? Because they'll be able to say, oh, look, he just selected this bread. Grab that bread. Oh, he just selected ham and turkey and pumpernickel. I mean, whatever meats there are, right? These are your selection for meats. And I would highly suggest, if you're going to do this, go this route. Put the meats over here. And then we can have, I know I didn't do a bunch of different cheeses, and I apologize for that, but if you want people to have, and these are different selections, so this is, if they want 5 different kinds of meat, if they want 5 different kinds of cheese, then you have to have 5 different fields, okay? Just FYI. So the cheeses, we're just going to go ahead. We're going to bring this up to 24. And I know this is kind of boring because it is kind of boring, but it's not that boring, so just get used to it. And then we'll bring the cheeses over here and we'll just line it up. And now we have the cheese. And then we've got, what do we got? Sauces and veggies. We've got veggies. Just make these work for however you need them to work. I'm just going to show you how to make them work. Show you how to make them work. I think I'll put veggies over here underneath this. And we can have all of these lined up just like that. So pretty simple, right? How many veggies did I have? Not very many, did I? So I didn't do like a lot. And then we obviously we have the sauces. We're gonna bring the sauces out here, and then as you see, we're not gonna do like the sauces. So we're not gonna label the sauces 1, sauces 2, sauces 3. And I only did this just so I could kind of show you guys what it is that we want to do or how we want to accomplish this goal. And we'll just collect all of these and make them all at 24 so we're not having to mess around with too much of this. The big thing is you want to make this so that your kitchen staff or wait staff or whoever it is can read it and read it quickly. And then we are going to need to, because this is an order number, we are going to need to do a couple of other things. And the first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to put a button on here. That is so not what I want. Button. So the button that we need to put on here is, I'm going to say mine is going to be completed. And we're just going to say do nothing for now. Because this is the kitchen view. The kitchen is never going to leave this. They're going to stay on this page. That's it. They're going to stay here on this page forever. They don't need to go anywhere else and do anything other than this. So the completed button at the bottom, I want the print to be yellow because I'd like it to be just pop right out. So as a sandwich is completed, you've got your person there calling out the stuff that is on the sandwich, the meats, the breads, the cheeses, the veggies, whatever. As you can kind of see the format that we're looking for. Your format obviously will be different, but this is what we're looking for. We're looking for something that's very much like this, that segregates it so the kitchen can read it or the staff can read it. And then now we basically have something called Kitchen Sans. So we now have the ability to do this. So let's go into our, we'll do the manage the database, and we are in this, and we'll just do a quick ID, and that'll just be a number. We'll create it. And we can do, it's going to be creation, and it should be either a date or a timestamp. So I should have made, instead of making this a number, I needed this to be a timestamp. Change. Okay, so, and this is the date and the time. So we know exactly when this person made the order. That's kind of a big thing. I kind of forgot about it. You don't have to call yours ID. You can call it whatever you want to. If you want to call it timestamp, you can call it timestamp. That's fine. Change. And now when you go into our field picker, you're going to have the timestamp at the bottom. Just grab it. You don't have to have any sort of a label for it at all. But I do want to make sure that we bring it down here and that people know exactly what time it was, right? So I'm going to bring it up, make it big. And obviously it's going to need to be very big, right? So actually I'm going to put it like way the heck over here. And none of these need to be available in browse mode. FYI, not one of them needs to be available in browse mode. So you can, when you're doing this, I'm just gonna close this field picker out because it's in my way. When you go into your inspector, just press and hold the shift button and you can just select all of these. And we'll go into the data, and not one of them needs to be available in browse mode, so we'll just click done. But the timestamp is as it is on creation. So as the record is created, then it creates it, right? So it happens. Then it will fill the timestamp. I messed up my thing. It's not pretty anymore, but no big deal. You can always, if you want to, you can always grab like a list or a line of these like this, and you can always go into your like positions, and you can always tell them that you want them to be spaced evenly from each other or line them up on the centers. So you can always change how that appears in the system. So I just lined all of mine up on centers, and then if I wanted to, I could space them all evenly away from each other, and then grab this one and basically just separate it a little bit farther. So it's a little bit different. But now what we have to do is we have to go back to our system, right? So we have to go back to where we were. And if we exit our layout, we can just come to here, go to menu 1 items and Mama Lunch, because that's where we were, Mama Lunch. And if you go to create items, it'll take you here. So now when you're doing a bread item, now you have to remember, you have to have all of this stuff in your inventory or in your sale thing. So if it's not, if you go to this inventory and it's not here, we're gonna have to show all the records. You're gonna have to create them. So you have to create them. So a new record 102. We're gonna call this product will be white bread. Or you don't have to name it. You don't have to say white bread. You can just say white, because we know it's a bread. And you can assign it a specific value. So if the value of your slice of bread, you know it takes 2 slices of bread to do it. That's $1. Put it in there, the value, and then like 103. So I should probably be writing these down, because otherwise I'm gonna get lost especially with I'm on like decongestants and stuff like that. So 1002 is white. 1003 is like let's call this chicken. We'll just call it chicken. And its value is, I don't know, 50 cents a use, 55 cents a use, whatever, 60 cents a use, 70 cents a use. We'll call it $1 because it's $1, whatever. And then we'll do another one, and we'll call this, we're going to use this as American for the cheese. And its value is 0.75. So 1004 is American, meaning for the cheese. And now I will show you how to make all that work. Voila, right? So we do now have that. Let's go into our menus, and let's go into our Mama Lunch. And let's create the item one. And under the breads for this white, we have to create, we're gonna have to create a script for that particular one. Wow, my throat just feels like really dry today, like really weird. So if we edit the layout, and we double click, and we click on this one, it says do nothing, but we want it to actually perform a script. And we do have the master menu script, but the master menu script is not necessarily what we want to use. So we need to create a new one. And the new script that we're going to call is, I'm just going to call this sand underscore specs. And what it's going to do is one of the very first things it's going to do is it needs to, and I don't know why I forgot to do that, but apparently I did. it needs to, we need to grab the variable, right? So we need to set a field. And the field that we want to set is going to be, I think, product code. And the results is, we want it to get script parameter. I apologize if I'm a little, the decongestants they give you just kind of mess with your brain cell. Get script parameter. And so now that it's set that field, what we need to now do is we need to set the variable of that. Because if you remember correctly, we talked about it before. So we're just going to name it product. And it's going to be the product code. Set field, and this field is going to be that product code, and we want it to just clear it. So instead of doing clear field, which we know messes with things, we're just going to set it to the quotation marks. So that basically gets rid of it. Well, now that we have the script parameter and the product code, we now know what product it is we're looking for. So at this point, we need to, now that we have that information, we're going to assume that it's 1. We're going to always assume that it's 1. So the quantity will always be 1. We don't necessarily have to have a quantity in this particular, on this particular script, but we're going to go to, we're going to freeze the first thing we're going to do is we're going to freeze the window because we don't want people to see what we're doing. We're going to go to the layout, and that layout is going to be, what we're looking for is we need to go to the inventory because we need to find out what this is, right? So inventory, and then we need to enter the find mode. I apologize if I'm going a little fast for you guys. We don't need to pause. And from this find mode, we need to set a field. And that field is going to be that product code. So in our, I think it's under sales? The product ID, and the calculated result is going to be $product. Because what we're looking for is we got to look for that product. How are we going to know how much, what the product is, and or the price of it? And the cool thing is you can add anything you want to in there. So if you have like, if you want to take it out of your inventory, like you have 300 slices of bread, you can take 2 slices of bread out right now if you want to, or 1 bun, or whatever it is that you actually have. And if you want to, just go back and look at some of my previous videos, and that will you'll be able to know how to do that. It's pretty simple. And then we need to set the error capture on, just because we want to make sure that we don't stall the script. The script will continue whether it finds something or not. And then we'll perform the find. Now that we are there, we're at the product, and we now know what it is, we need to set some variables. And those variables, first and foremost, are going to be like product. So we want to know, like, what's the name of the product? So we'll go name. And that will be, I don't know why it does this, but sales product name. And then we'll set another variable. And that, we got to know how much is this? So price, cost, whatever. We're going to just say price. Seems to be simplest for me. Sales. And this is going to be the value. Okay. Now we know that we're going to go to the inventory sales. We're going to set the field, perform a find. Then we're going to grab some information, i.e. the name of the product and the value or the price of the product. But now that we have this information, what are we going to do with it? My goodness, I think I'm going to have to get me something else. Well, now what we need to do with this information is we need to take it to a page. And we need to be able to take that information to that page that we were on without recreating it. Does that make sense? So we want to be able to create it without recreating it, or without creating part of it and then deleting part of it. So hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So let's go ahead and Control S. We're just going to save this for now because we need to do a couple of things. So we'll just say OK. We'll change this to hand over script. Now, on this page specifically, we need to know, like, if you're creating a sandwich on this page, you're creating a single sandwich on this page. It becomes complicated because you have so many different windows and you want to take this information as you get it and then put it on a different page. But you don't want to confuse that page. You don't want to, you want it to go to that page, but what happens when the sandwich is done? Do you want it to just continue to make changes to a page? No, you want to recreate, or you want to create new records all the time and then keep track of those records. And you can say, at this time you ordered this sandwich and this is exactly what you wanted on your sandwich. You told me, right? So in order to do that, we need something on this page that we're currently on. So Mama Lunch Special, we are going to need a tracking code, or a code track, or a item track, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to have to go in and manage the database. And on this particular field, we're going to need a track. We're just going to call it a tracking. Here we did have the invoice lock, but that's okay. Let's not worry about the invoice lock at this moment. We're just going to do tracking, and we're going to call it a text. And now I need to field picker, and we're going to bring the tracking number in and put it right there. No label. Now, this tracking number doesn't need to be visible, so if you wanted to, you could go in and erase it. You could say, like in the appearance, you can say no line, no fill, and that's perfectly fine. But what you do need to do is you do need to make sure that it's not available in browse mode, because we don't want this to change. We don't want this information to change at all. And so now we actually have a part that we can create. So let's go to our ET2 menu. Let's go to our kitchen sands. We need to exit the layout. We need to create a new record. And all of a sudden, we now have a time and a date and all this other neat stuff. So you have to start somewhere. So here we're going to create this, and we have this number, and it's 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. Okay, and we'll deal with the completed button later. And now if we come here and we edit the layout, we need to put, in this particular one, we need to be able to have it so that we can get to it for this second. And so we want it to be a 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have to put a number in there. We have to put something in there. And I'm just going to leave it so we can see it for now, but eventually I'll get rid of it. Well, or whatever. You guys can at least see it. So that's kind of the big deal. And now when we go into our breads, we need to go into in this white, remember we were creating this sans specs. So now that we have the variables and we know what the price is and we know what the product is, we now need to go to that new layout. But we needed to, up here, we actually needed to set a variable. So here we've got set a variable. Let's go up underneath that and we'll set another variable. And that variable is going to be, we need that to be our track. So we're just going to call it track, and it's going to be tracking. I just like to use that because it keeps it simple, easy, and painless. Keeps it right on the line. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to, from here, we need to go to our new layout. And on this new layout, which happens to be called Kitchen Sans, Kitchen Sandwich Items, now this is where we need to figure out if these two numbers match, because these two numbers it's critical that they match each other. It's critical that these two numbers match each other. I'm sorry, but I'm watching what's going on in the store. We do get a lot of interesting customers in our store, so I like to keep very close track of them. So now that we're there, we need to say, okay, so let's put an if in this statement. So if, because we're already there, we're at the layout. So if, and this is under items, if order number is not equal to the or is equal to, let's get rid of that. Let's go back. If the order number is equal to this product code that we've got up here, the track, the $sign track. And sometimes this doesn't work. So what you may need to do is you may need to go in and you may need to, as a matter of fact, I think we will do that because 9 out of 10 times this particular thing doesn't work. If order number is equal to track, so we're going to have to go, let's just say okay for now, manage the database. You may need to do, in this items thing, we may need to put in an order track. So let's just do order underscore track. And it can be a text or a number. Might as well just make it a number so that we know whatever. Okay. And now if we go back in and we manage our scripts, which is the script we were just on, we could say, we can get rid of this, get rid of this. So we will set a field, and that field that we're going to set is the items, and it's going to be order track. And that we're going to set as $sign track. And now we can actually do the if statement. So if it's kind of a bummer that it does that all the time, but if the order number is not equal to order track, then we want it to return to the page, we want it to do something. So we either want it to be like go back to the original page and say something is wrong, or we want it to start a new record, one of the two. So in this particular case, we would want to start a new record. So we will do new record, new record request, and then it would start to fill in all the other stuff. But if it is equal to it, then we all of a sudden we don't really care that much about it. So we're going to go ahead and Control we'll go ahead and start putting the data in there. So how do we know what fields to set? How do we know what things that we want to do? Well, that becomes a little more complicated, because if you're setting a meat, if you're setting like a chicken or a bread or a cheese or something, you got to be able to know which one it is that you're doing. Now, in this sense, you can change each one of these scripts so that, and that's the easiest way to do it, so that this one would be just your breads. So sans specs breads, sans specs meat, sans specs blah blah blah, and that would be the easiest way to do it. The more complicated way to do it, which is completely legitimate, you can easily do that as well, would be that you could put a specific code, but then you would have to add all these if statements in. So if the code is less than 5, then it would be this. If it's less than 10, then it would be this. If it's less than 20, then it would do this. Or if it's greater than 20, or if it's greater than, and that's how you would have to do it. So and you'd have a lot of if statements. So if it's greater than, and you'd probably want to start on the outside. So if your code is greater than 100, then it would be breads. If it's greater than 90, and you notice how it would de-escalate. So it would go down. If it's greater than 90, so if it didn't match this, then if it's greater than 90, then it would be this. And if it's greater than this, then it would be that. So personally, I would rather just do the 5 or 6 or whatever, how many ever selections we have. In this particular case, we have 4 or 5. So we can just do this one as breads, so that we know what this one is. So if the item number is the same, then, or if it's not the same, then just create a new record, and then end if. But if it is the same, then we're going to go to a field and we're going to set a field. And that field that we set is going to be on this one. It will be the breads field. Now there's only one breads field, so we're not too worried about the breads field. So in this one, we'll just go into items, breads, and that is going to be our $sign name. And if we needed to, in this particular case, we have like a value that's associated to it. We can keep track of that value by creating, because we currently don't have a field for it. So what we'd have to do is we'd have to create a field for the value of it. And then after that's done, set that value inside of a box. So it'd be part of a calculation. So all this stuff is going through my mind, and I'm just thinking to myself, Tim, you should have been more prepared before you came in and did this, this particular one. But that's no big deal. We did go an hour, and I will kind of show you how to do more of this later. And if you want to do, Doug, if you want to know how to do it with the codes, that's fine. You can do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I personally think it would be better if you had numbers. So if it's greater than 10, if it's 9, if it's 8, if it's 7, if it's 6, you can put all those if statements in, and then you'll know. But it does make a very long script if you do it that way. Whereas on the other hand, you can have this one script for all of your breads, and this one script for all of your other things, like your on and on and on, so on and so forth. So we'll set the field breads, and then we'll just go from this point. We'll just say go to layout, original layout, and then show record. I'm going to just say show custom dialog just real quick, and say selection added, and we'll just say your selection has been added. We'll say okay, because cancel is worthless, and then halt script, because that's what we want to do, is halt the script. Now we can Control S to get rid of that. And now if you remember in this white bread, we did need to make sure that we had our optional script parameter, which would be 1002. Okay. So now if we do this and we exit the layout and we go into our tools and we do our script debugger, we're going to pull over here, we're going to go into breads and press white. It will automatically bring this up. F6 will get us into the scenario so we can see what it's doing or get us into the script, and F6 will continue to run through the script. So it's going to set those things. It's going to set the product code back to 0, freeze window. Go to the layout. It's going to look for this product as we can see it. It'll put the number in, perform the find. We see it all of a sudden it is the white bread that it has selected. Now it's going to set a couple of variables. It's going to go to our kitchen sands, and in the bread selection, as you can see, if the two order numbers are different from each other. Oh, you know what we forgot to do? I think we forgot to put that on the thing. But we won't forget to put that on there. It needs to be on the field. That this right here, that the order track, it has to be on the page. It has to be. If it's not on the page, then it automatically assumes that it is either equal or not equal to. So it would nullify an if statement. But that's okay because we didn't really matter. But I'll do that before I leave. So it's going to go ahead and it's going to set our field breads to white. So now we know that the customer wanted white bread. Now this all happens in real time. So your selection has been added, and then we halt the script. So now if you were on, and I'm just going to go back here, not to that one, to this one. I'm just going to go back here, and we'll go ahead and quick edit the layout, and we will go into our field picker because we forgot to put this order tracking number on here. And you can put it anywhere you want to, not a big deal. I normally put it like all the way at the bottom somewhere, and I normally hide it so you can't see it. It doesn't need to be seen. It's basically just a comparison thing, is to say, is this the same as this? And you need that because you want to make sure that that one sandwich ends up on that one thing. So what'll happen is, in this particular sense, they selected their bread, so they went there. Now, on this page, we will get rid of all of this other stuff so that they can't, from this page, they won't be able to go anywhere. They'll have to, like this one will say, right now it says that it wants you to do something, so we would literally get rid of that. We would get rid of all of these, and this one we would be it would be finished. And what that would do is we'd get rid of all of this stuff. I just don't want to erase it for the practicality of the pictures, but that's okay. I'll just go ahead and erase it. So this person is now building their own sandwich, and I'm going to get rid of that. So this person now has the ability to build their own sandwich. Now if you wanted to, you could create a window here that would show them what they ordered and what they had on their sandwich, and that they could get rid of it. And if you wanted to do that, so we would have to put a portal window in, very much as we did on this order invoice. Remember the order invoice? So if you want the customer to actually visually be able to see the sandwich that they're building, you'd have to create this without all the monetary selections, unless you wanted to have all the monetary selections. You'd have to recreate this exact thing and put that into this space. So when they selected the bread would be there. When they selected the meats would all be listed. But those meats would also be listed on our kitchen sans page as well. FYI. So they would all of it would be there. Like you see, this person just started with the white bread, and what we would do is when the person finishes, so I'm going to just quick go over this with you guys just really fast. So this number is always going to stay the same. This particular number is going to stay the same until someone pushes this finish button. So one of the things you're going to do on this finish button is you're going to have it get rid of this number. And then it's going to go and it's going to start a new record. And then it's going to find that record. So if the numbers are, if they're not identical, it'll create a new record, or it will find the record. And I think that in this particular case, as it's a very boutique type shop, that record would be different for every person, and I would very much control that on one specific. So this would be one tablet. Another one, I would start the record number at 6 and then 5 zeros. And then another tablet at 7, 5 zeros. So if I wanted to have like little kiosks where people could come up and they could put in what their sandwich orders were, this one, and then they would press finished, and it would give them a number, which would be easy because on our edit layout, manage the database, what we could do is in this one, which is our sales items, I'm sorry. So in our items, you would have to have some places for that monetary, for the monetary amounts to go into. So if you had like breads, meats, vegetables, cheeses, sauces, you'd have to be able to add all that stuff together. And it wouldn't be that hard to do. You just basically would have to put in like a bunch of different fields that all had the capacity for numbers so that all those numbers could be added together. And that would be pretty simple to do in the sense that you could just have like, I'm just going to name this one field, and I'm going to call it a number, and we'll create it, and field 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. Now the cool thing about these is how many fields you're going to need. 10, 12, 15, 20. How many fields do you need? It doesn't, how many ever you need, it doesn't really matter. If you need like 200 of them, then you've gone too far and your sandwich shop needs some help. But if you need like 15 or 20 of them, that's fine. Just go ahead and use that. And you can use a loop index. So if 1 is empty, go to the next record. If 2 is empty, go to the next record. If 3 is empty, go to the next record. Or put your data in this one, and if it's full, go to the next one. If it's full, go to the next one. If it's full, go to the next one. Just so you could just put data in quite like that, and that's fine. Or you can put in a little calculation window if you wanted to. You could build a portal. So there's like 1,000 different ways to do it. If you wanted to put a little portal window in there, you could do that. In the portal window, you just portal rows. You could use the portal row method, and it would add everything together, and that would be just fine. Or you could do a bunch of different fields and just say, if field 1 is full, go to field 2, go to field 3, go to field 4, go to field 5, whatever the case is. And it would just continue to fill those fields and then you just would have one summary field at the end or one calculation field at the end. And the best thing to do would be to have like one summary field because it'll just automatically add everything together. So monetarily wise, you could have like your breads, you could put a number in for your breads. So field 1 for breads or field breads or whatever the case might be. You could associate those together. Hopefully I made some sense to you guys today. Hopefully you guys aren't completely like now going, what? Tim has completely lost us. I have no idea what I'm doing. This was a very complicated one. It's very simple, but it's very, very complicated because there's a bunch of different things that you need to do to make it work. Um, but once you kind of understand the basis of how you want it to work, it's just a matter of writing the script to make it work. So in this sense, you should be good. I'm gonna save it so that if you go to your fields, you might want to say like if because this one would be breads, and that would be the script I'd be using. I'd almost say like you should add an if statement that if the field is already full, or if the field is not empty, the bread field, then do something. But that's what I would use. I would use that same if is empty field on, if is empty, then add the data in there. If is empty, add the data. If is empty, add the data. If that script can be a mile long, it's just basically going to run through the scripts and putting those numbers in there. And you can also have a really unique one which is one that I already did. It was kind of unique, where what it did was it took the information, and if you guys watch my last video, what it does is it takes the information from one and moves it to the other as so it combines the two. It takes one, and then it'll keep track of them, but it'll keep pushing them farther and farther and farther down. That would be a brilliant one to actually use in the sense of your monetary charges, or the charges that you're going to make for every single item. It would be easier if you just had like a sandwich, and you said the sandwich was $19.99 for the sandwich, and if you wanted to add things more to your sandwich other than the normal, like you get to pick your bread, you get to pick your whatever, and then go ahead and pick your bread, go ahead and pick your meats, go ahead and pick your let me exit the layout, makes it easier. Go ahead and pick your breads, your meats, your your veggies, and what sauces or sides you want, whatever. You get to pick all that stuff, and it's $19.95 a whole sandwich. But if you want extras, you can have a duplicate of this over here for extras, and that's where you start to add to that base amount. That would be a wisest way to run a store. People like to know in advance. They don't like to be nickel and dime to death, as I've discovered in business. They hate to come in and be charged a nickel for every single thing that they do, and then at the end of the day, they've spent $500 and didn't know where that came from, and it doesn't matter to them the individual cost. It's the overall cost. How much did I have to pay to get this done? And if a sandwich is costing someone $20, you probably or more than that, you're probably going to have a tough time to selling that sandwich unless you live in New York. But anyway, thanks everyone. You guys are amazing. I sure appreciate you guys being here. Sorry I'm sick today, but we will have another video later in the week, and later on in the week we're not going to deal with this unless Doug writes me a letter and says, Tim, I really want to know more about how come this is not working for me, or how come this is working for me. But unless we have someone really want more or delve more into this, I think that what we'll do is we'll get on with what we were doing before, which is we want to be able to get back and close out some of this stuff and go into the kitchen, which is kind of a big deal. So we want to be able to take this information and take it to the kitchen so that the kitchen can read it. And that's about a scripting thing, and it's also about the same thing that we did, which was, remember how we built that page just a second ago? And we had the page for like what happens when I build this sandwich. We're gonna have the exact same thing here, except for the kitchen one will be on a menu item that is complete. And so instead of an order number, it'll be a table number, and then you'll have these same kind of a fieldy kind of things, but it's going to tell you what they ordered. So it'd be like they just ordered the meatball platter and blah blah blah, and then when the kitchen is done with it, they press the completed and it moves to the next order, moves to the next order, moves to the next order. So all the orders come in order, and then when they are finished, when they're completed, it moves the kitchen to the next order, and they can get that one done. And you can also run multiple displays if you wanted to. So you could actually have like a multiple, like if you've got multiple people doing things, each one could actually be on their own little section, completing records as they can. So anyway, with that, guys, I appreciate you guys watching. You guys are amazing. Thank you so very much for watching me. You guys are great. Until next time, don't forget, Luke Hillen will be doing a bunch of stuff today on the other channel, but I will not. So I know that's kind of confusing, but don't worry about it. We'll see you guys on the next one. As I always say, be good to each other, and give me a thumbs up, like, subscribe, all that neat stuff. You guys are awesome. Bye, guys.